so excited to introduce to you guys our next guest. This gal is a soul sister to me, so I am so proud of her for saying yes, for jumping on this show and sharing her story, because she is one of the most badass mamas I know. So I'd like to introduce you for the first time, Hollie. Hey girl, how's it going?
Hey, good. How are you guys doing?
I'm so good. I'm so glad that you decided to jump, or like said yes to me jumping on. Well, you said you would, but immediately, like 3 days later, I was like, okay, how about now?
Yes,
And
I'm so in. I'm so
I know.
excited.
I love it. And I think I just know that about you, because one thing, if you know Miss Hollie G, is that she's unapologetically herself, and that's why we love her. And so perfect fitting for your branding into our branding, because it's all about like being uniquely yourself and standing out. And we just stand for that. So thanks again for being here today. And before we get jumping into these questions, can you tell our little community a little bit about yourself so they can know you a little bit better?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So I am a mom of two. I have a 7-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. And I run my own hairstyling company. Well, I guess I have my salon set up in my home. I'm also a makeup artist and I'm a maker, so I always like having my hands busy making scrunchies and crafting. And yeah, man, I have a lot of things on the go, but that's basically me.
I know, right? And then you're like, oh, and then I do this, and then I do this. And just to give everyone an idea of how me and Hollie, like, we've known each other for a long time. I don't know how long now, at least like 2017, 16, like at least
Oh,
four or five.
yeah,
Was
it's been at least like 6 years.
Yeah, holy crap. Yeah. So, and we started
Yeah.
out in the art community together. Me, photographer, C, model, fun times. We've done so many fun art together. And I think that's what really connected us to on a different level, because it's like with art, your mental illnesses can be like your fuel and also your extinguisher. And so I think that that kind of like bonded us, because it immediately, again, we're just like, oh my gosh, we have all this, like we just immediately connected and talked about all this on a deep level. And I think that helped us in our friendship and artistically, and I think that's why we always have so much fun together, because it's just so safe.
Yeah, yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. I know, like, when I get the chance to model, I kind of like, yeah, I go into like a whole different person and I get to experience like me from a different perspective and be able to work all of my emotions into what I get to do. And working with incredible people like you is, yeah, definitely a huge bonus.
Yeah, it's so nice, and it's such a nice channel of your energy. And I don't know about you, but I think I had that really pent up for a long time until I found how to channel it properly, and the energy that was inside. I was like, I don't know what to do with this. And I, like we were talking in our episode that we just launched today, that we just didn't know what to do with that, and you're so pent up and angsty, and then now you have a flow for it. So it's like, and you miss it if you disconnect from that for a bit and you don't have that channel. It's like it builds up and you're like, I really miss it. And
Absolutely, yeah.
it's such a good channel for those feelings, and then the connection with everybody. It's one of my favorite things ever.
Me too.
I love. All right, Miss, let's get into these questions, because I'm dying to know. Like I've said in my last episode, I have definitely gotten close to playing with depression, but I'm too high functioning to even stop for 35 seconds.
Yeah.
Not that people with depression don't do that too. But have you ever been diagnosed with depression?
So yeah, yes, I was about 6 years ago.
That's very fair. And can you elaborate on what type of, sorry, I'm totally bad at this. This is why I should be interviewing this. What form of depression were you diagnosed with?
So I was actually diagnosed with postpartum depression. My daughter was a year old at the time when I was diagnosed. And then I also had like seasonal depression that was diagnosed around the same time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a weird time.
Totally. And would you say, just because obviously we all know that I can't relate to the postpartum, would you say that you were diagnosed a year after? Do you feel like that was an immediate thing and you're just not diagnosed with it until a year later?
So for me, I have a bit of a weird story for me. I went undiagnosed for a year. So my theory was that I actually had it after I had my daughter, and it just went undiagnosed for that long. I had issues with my thyroid that show up as similar symptoms as depression.
Mm.
So my doctor medicated me for my thyroid, thinking it would solve all my problems, and it didn't. And then he's like, "Oh, well, what else is wrong?" So, yeah.
Like my heart hurts. Like it's not just my thyroid. And that's like, and that's why we keep telling people, like, no matter what, you got to keep fighting for answers. Like if something you're taking or doing doesn't feel right, that's fine. That's okay. And I think
Yeah.
for me, it was like, and I'm not saying that I would do anything different now, but when I was on my medication, it was kind of like that one didn't work. It didn't make me feel good. I didn't like anything. And I just kind of, I abandoned the whole idea. But it's like, sometimes it really does take different, just because something is prescribed for depression or anxiety doesn't mean that it's right for yours or for you. Right.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's super important. So it's like, I think it's good to have that community to be like, yeah, this isn't working out. But then how do you know, right? How do you know if that's, you're just hopeful and you're like, oh, it's me. I don't know if you do that, but like, oh, it's not the medication. It's
Oh, yeah. I
right.
thought I was losing my mind. Absolutely.
And every single one of you that have talked, and same with anxiety too, the episode, when you weren't able to identify what it was, you literally feel trapped in your head and have no idea. And that's why we're pushing for people to communicate, because it's like guaranteed someone understands you to a degree, maybe not fully,
Right? Yeah.
but to a degree, to at least have some relief that maybe there's a way, or what did you do to, that's why I wanted this podcast to say, like, what are the ways that you succeed and how do you work with it? Because with everyone's answers, like people are bound to find something that works for them.
Right.
And
Totally.
that's the thing that I love the most about it. How did this, so would you say that you currently are going through this, or was just a postpartum depression, and now obviously living in the Great North, you go through seasonal still no matter what? Is that kind of specific where it is now?
So I, when they officially diagnosed me 6 years ago, they medicated me. And like the telltale signs for me were like my personal hygiene. I went really long times without showering. I didn't want to move off the couch, stuff like that. And then like today, I find myself doing a lot better. I still have my triggers, of course, that kind of put me back down like a weird thought process,
Mm-hmm.
but I like find a way to shake it off and be like, that's not me anymore.
And you will literally shake it off
There.
with your kids.
Totally, absolutely.
Yeah, and I love that. It's my favorite. Like, and it's just such a, I think you'll agree that it's such an empowering thing once you start to recognize it and you start calling it out and you start finding ways to reverse those thought patterns. And then you're like, wow, instead of, 3 days, it was 2 days. And then this one was one
Yeah.
day, or this was like, oh, that thought would have bothered me so much 5 years ago, but now I've really let that go. And it's, I think,
Totally.
if we focus on those more and those wins, just like with your fitness goals, if you focus on all the little wins, that's not just to do with the scale or with measurements, to be like, oh, I hit 1,000 steps. Well, 1,000 steps is fuck all, but you know what I'm saying. Like, I think when I was in the office, I don't think I even got that much. Now I'm hitting like 12,000 a day. It's a wild life.
Right.
Right. But it's just like, yeah, finding all different ways to help towards those goals. And I love it. I'm really glad to hear. And I can see that like when we first met, I think is when you were probably just diagnosed then.
Yeah, I think so.
Or well, like close to it at least. And then just like, even to watch you soar, but you were always, maybe you felt like you were a mess, but like you were always so strong to me. So that was never something.
Thanks.
Yeah, I never thought, like I knew you were like, you were an empath and you felt stuff on a deep level, and you were, more emotionally intelligent, but I never ever, it was never like a negative. And when you were negative about yourself, I'm like, and then you flip that around so fast in your life. Like, it's so great.
Thanks.
So how would you say, now that you've gone through all the things, you're starting to identify day to day, did I already ask you this? Does it affect your day-to-day life anymore? Too much?
So,
Or how would it?
um, so I'll give you like a little bit of an idea of how like I was back then. I like my ex and me never had a super great relationship. And I remember one of the really big things that he used to say to me when I thought that something was wrong. Like before I was fully diagnosed, I would be like, something's off, something's really wrong. I don't feel connected to my child, and I should be. Am I even supposed to be a mom? I had these weird thoughts of like nothing that would be self-harming, but I would be like, if I was to drive away in my car right now and never come back, would that be better for her?
Yep.
And like just like messed up thoughts like that that I knew weren't normal. I'm like, I'm supposed to be bonding with this baby, and right now I'm like, I don't even want to touch her. I'm like, that's scary. I'm not supposed to be like this. Am I even
Yep.
supposed to be a mom?
Yep.
And I remember having this conversation with my ex, being like, dude, like I can't function. And he's like, well, maybe if you got up off your ass and did something, you'd feel better.
Eek.
And I was like, so at the same time, the doctors were kind of playing with my thyroid medication to try to get it to the right levels.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I need to go talk to the doctor. So I had asked my ex at the, well, my boyfriend at the time, like, will you come to the doctors with me? Because I don't want to do this alone. And I don't want to sit in there and tell him that I feel crazy. I don't want them to take our daughter away from me. And I remember that being like the scariest part. Like, the doctor's going to think I'm unstable and not be able to take care of my own child. I don't want to lose her.
And I think I don't mean to interrupt, but I think that's
Yeah.
why so many moms are so afraid to come forward if they've never heard that it's more normal about postpartum. Because if you don't know that that's something that can trigger after you've had a baby chemically in your brain, no wonder why
Yeah.
you guys would think that, like it's
Right.
literally the devil in your brain playing fire, and you're too afraid because you don't want to lose your baby. But at the same time, you're like, well, why am I feeling this way? Like, and that's, I really just want, even though I'm not in the experience, I just want to say I've heard women say that a lot. And I just want to validate that for you, that, I'm glad you're speaking on this today so other women don't have to feel that. And I'm sorry that you had to.
Yeah, it was rough being in it and not having that support system. Like my family's way back in Newfoundland and I'm in Alberta here, so it was very, very hard because I felt like I was on my own, right? Especially when you don't have a supportive partner.
Yeah.
And as soon as I even suggested him going with me, he was like, "No, this is your problem. You go by your own. Like go by yourself."
Yep.
So I booked an appointment to go check on my levels, and I remember driving and having to pull over. And I only live like 20 minutes away from the doctor. I had to pull over because I was so tired that I almost fell asleep at the wheel. And I remember getting into my appointment and my doctor being like, "Oh, Holly, your thyroid levels are looking awesome." And I broke down and cried. I was like, "But something's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need you to fix me.
Yeah.
That might be fine on my blood work, but I am not okay. What do we do from here?" So they put me on medication for about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I came off them. It was really rough coming off of them. I'm not good on any medication. I have a very addictive personality.
Me and you
so
both.
I'm not good on meds. They made me zombie out, is what I always called it anyway. I couldn't function very well. So I came off of those and kind of went into like a more of a creative way of an outlet, which hence my modeling and stuff like that. So that was my outlet for all of that. And I was kind of forced into single mom life, which was actually for the better.
Totally.
Looking back now, at the time it sucked, but it really tested my abilities and my strength to continue being me and step more into who I am versus living under a rock and playing it small.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, sorry, fast forward. And then when I was pregnant with my now 1-year-old, I had talked to my family or my baby doctor and was like, "Hey, heads up, last time around, I was undiagnosed for a year." Yeah. She was like, "What the fuck?" She was pissed. She's like, "Yeah, no, we will not let that happen. So if you have any signs or symptoms that you had from last time, book an appointment with me. Come see me. I didn't even care if you're even pregnant at the time, whatever. Come see me. We'll figure it out." So I remember going to my youngest daughter's immunizations, and they have like a form to fill out. That's not mandatory, by the way, but it's like, if you feel like filling it out, fill it out. I'm like, okay. So I was like teeter-tottering on like, I guess it's like I was in like the gray zone, like not full danger to myself or anybody else, but not fully okay.
Yeah.
And the nurse was like, "Oh," and I was like, "What does that mean?" She's like, "Oh, I'm going to get a nurse to call you and just to kind of chat about this." I was like, "What does that mean?" And she's like, "Oh, nurse will call you." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I got a call about I think it was like a week later. She's like, "Okay, I just want to talk about some stuff here on your evaluation. There's some concerning things." And then she went down like the whole like scale of, 1,010 questions. And she's like, "How's your personal hygiene?" I was like, "Shit, you know what? I don't even know if I brushed my teeth today." And it was like one of those things of like, oh shit, here we go again. And I had tried to mentally prepare myself for this time around because I guess statistically, more kids you have, the more likelihood of you getting it again.
Yep.
So I was here trying to test my brain of like decluttering my house and nesting and like anything that would, be easier for me mentally. I did all those things, right? So clearly that doesn't work. So
Fuck.
at
But I
the
mean,
time,
like,
I didn't
you,
feel better.
yeah, but I mean, it's so hard. I mean, I'm not saying I have any idea when you have a kid, but I can imagine at that moment, your life is a bubble around the baby and all of those things.
Yeah,
You were the last person you're thinking about. And even though subconsciously you told yourself to prepare for it, like, you can't always prepare for a chemical imbalance that happens, right? And so,
totally.
even though, but you probably carried guilt at that time. But I mean, I can't wait for society to like teach people not to have guilt for having fucking emotions or feelings, or that's how their brain literally functions. Like, it's not anybody's fault.
Right?
It's
Yeah,
just,
I think the biggest part of doing it all over again was my spouse was so supportive over everything. He helped out with everything.
yeah,
I went to counseling just to kind of get all of my big feelings out.
yeah,
Um, and then I actually had a career change, which was huge because I actually stepped into being my own boss. And that was a huge, huge difference for me
yeah,
because I did not like the job I was working. And like there's all these little small moving parts that really, really played big roles in my like where I am now.
yeah, and your success for sure. So then, obviously you had the medication for a certain time, and now you uh, find more creative channels, and I know you're definitely into your meditating, and you dance with the girls and you try to move as much as you can. Is there anything else that you naturally do to help so you don't fall into any depressive states?
So I actually medicate with CBD oil on a daily. I take them in little gummies. Love them actually. I find a huge difference. I found after I had both of my girls, my anxiety levels are also kind of wonky too. So I find that the CBD oil helps mellow me out in general.
Totally.
Um, yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah, we love the CBD gummies, and we're all for it. And I definitely want to one day have a whole month dedicated to that plant because not just from like working in the store and like the industry, just from people I know and through the podcast, it's like every single person we've talked about anxiety and depression, they have mentioned CBD or THC, not THC for the most part, but
Yeah.
just our true stoners are into that. But the CBD for sure. And I absolutely love to hear it because the stigma is going to eventually turn around one day. And I'm just here for it. And I'm actually definitely researching more about psilocybin, especially the microdosing of
Ooh,
mushrooms. For it's been known to do really good for anxiety and depression, and they're actually making them legal in a lot of the American states, and I'm sure we'll not be far along. So that will be exciting to see because it would just be really, really great to see people heal from all these things with the most natural thing as possible. I'm not against medication, and I've
yeah.
said that multiple times. However, for me, I'm trying to see. I did a lot of drugs. I did a lot of
Yep.
pharmaceuticals in my time, and I want my body to be fresh for a couple years for when I'm in older age and I'm going to have to rely on more pharmaceuticals. Not necessarily saying for sure, but more likely that's just a personal choice. So yeah, I
Yep.
love hearing all these natural um, solutions that people are using. I fucking love it. Um, how old were you when you had Zadie then, or like when you were diagnosed with it? What was your age?
Oh, that's a great question. I have to do some math in my head. How old am I? Wait, hang on.
Roughly.
25.
Yeah, 25. Yeah.
Yeah,
There.
yeah. And I think like the second time around, when I was put on the meds, I think the scariest part for me, and I knew that the meds were not for me, because I would do some weird stuff that didn't make any sense.
Yep.
Like there was one day I was trying to load the laundry while holding baby in my arms, and I like tip her up with it, and she fell and actually hit the floor. I'm really, really, yeah, I dropped my baby.
That's
And it was like the scariest, most guilt trip. Like, oh my gosh, it was the worst. I had to call a friend to bring me to the hospital, and she was totally
oh
okay.
yeah, of
She was
course.
totally fine. And the nurses were like, "Oh, girl, like you should see the people that come in here. Like you're totally fine." And I was like, why does nobody talk about this? Because I can't be the only one who dropped my kid on her head.
No,
Like there's no way,
I'm pretty sure I fell off a washing machine if I remember correctly.
right?
But
But
I'm
I'm like,
that's just a not generation now, but that's just almost where the world has gone. And I think because everyone's on a necessarily a microscope when it comes to social media, it's a lot easier. Like if we didn't have, not that, I mean, now you're saying it out loud, but sometimes if
yeah,
things didn't exist on social media, like we would have no idea. Like think about, I was thinking about this the other day when I first started photography. I had no Instagram page. Like Instagram was not big then. Facebook was barely big. It was like you took the pictures and you gave them to the client, and that was the exchange.
right,
There was no,
yeah,
so it's like, I think that's the difference, is that there wasn't always everything on social media in real life. And for a lot of times, it's just all the glossy shit. And that's why we're all here being like, no,
totally,
there's some turds in
yeah.
here too. There's lots of shine, but
uh,
there's also days that are just like today. It's a third Monday. I love my job. I love my life. I'm happy, but it was just like chaotic, and we've had, like, I love it, but honestly, the interviews is a lot of work, and the podcast is a lot of work as much as it's great. But I was just like, I love today. I love launching. I love everything, but I'm just tired today. It's a
yeah,
Monday number 3. I
right,
just can't get my head in the
absolutely.
fucking game. So we
Um,
did kind of answer the next question saying that, where are you in your life now with your depression? Is this something of the past? So you said, obviously, you still have your moments and you're using all your tools. Is there anything now about your depression? Do you find it, like me and Kayla are starting to learn in our later years, that we're getting super intrigued about them, and we're finding almost like a fascination on like kind of a nerd level? Do you feel do you feel you're in that state with your kind of like depression now, that's kind of more like, what's this
well,
saying?
when I like sit and think back and I'm like, dude, your depression, a lot of it was situational.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel as soon as I was able to embrace who I was unapologetically, it was like a total like switch had flipped. It was kind of weird actually when you think like when I thought about it, but I had some really huge moments between me and my ex breaking up and to me being where I am that I don't think I gave myself enough credit for. So I think it's celebrating the journey along the way. And absolutely, I totally nerd out about it. And I am okay. So I've always been a big nerd, but I found in my past relationships, I've never embraced that side of me.
Yep.
Like comic book nerd, like straight up Harry Potter, all the things.
Yep.
Love it.
All the things.
But never ever like embraced it fully because I was, I always was playing it small. And I give my partner Sean a huge shout out because he has like embraced me full on nerd life, all the things.
Oh yeah.
And I think it makes, yeah,
You can
me
see it.
like just, oh, thanks.
It's so great. And it's like, it's just like you can conquer so much more of your goals and your things in life, instead of continually worrying that the people in your corner, whether that's your family, your spouse, your friends, are cheering you on or working against you. Like nothing is more exhausting than worrying about people like not being there for you. And it's just so nice when you just know that you're safe to just jump, and they'll be along the ride with you. And you just know that when you meet your person, like, it's shit's going to be hard. Like I know a lot of
Yeah,
people like, always like, oh, you and Grant, and I'm like, yeah, we're awesome, but we don't ever play that we're like, we've had our shit too, but we're always there for each other, and we're respect each other, and
totally.
we're loyal. And I think that's, things that kind of get lost in today's fast, quick life. And it's like, you just have to be honest and communicate. And I think, like we're saying in Courtney's, like, and Kayla's too, and I'm sure you feel the same way, if you didn't communicate this with Sean too, and he wasn't open to receiving it or listening, because you did communicate obviously before, and now Sean's there to receive it, and you feel like in such a great place. And it is a wonderful, empowering feeling to not feel so trapped and alone in this hole. It's like, okay, when I'm low, I know the go-to people to go to, and that's right in my household.
Yeah,
I love it.
totally.
And eventually your daughters will be there for you, and then you'll be equipped so that if Zadie or Rain start doing that, you'll already know to identify that, because you've been through a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, totally.
And that, to me, is like generational growth. And I think that's what well, I don't know, obviously I teach obviously the cats great life morals. Um, but I just love watching all my mom friends like just instill all this knowledge in their littles so that they're set up so much more successfully. And that's not a shame to any parent before us. We're all learning this shit. But now we know.
Totally.
Now we know. And you're doing
Yeah,
that by teaching your kids and then also teaching Sean. Like maybe he would never know that. And now I'm sure if he never suffered for it, he's more of a compassionate person for those that do have to suffer from mental illness. And it's just a beautiful growth.
yay.
So what would you say was your best accomplishments once you understood what was happening and how you felt? Like once you were like, hey, this is what it is. What did you win after?
So I think like the biggest thought that stuck with me was that I had like this stupid nagging voice in the back of my head saying, "You're not supposed to be a mom, Holly. Like you aren't connecting with your child at all." Like all of those really crappy mix match big emotions that I was feeling in my head. Um, but I think actually being able to build up the support system and talk about it freely without judgment. I think therapy was a huge, huge thing. And that was like one of my biggest takeaways, I think, was actually just being able to ask for help. And asking the really, really uncomfortable questions like, yeah, when my doctor said my thyroid levels are cool, awesome. And I could have just been like, okay, cool, just go away and just, stay with that and just suffer in whatever madness is going on in my head anyway. But instead, I asked like the really uncomfortable questions. Okay, like what happens next? Like, where do we go from here? And I know that might not actually sound like a huge accomplishment,
No, it's
but for
huge.
me asking for help in general is huge because I have the toxic independence part of me too from being a single mom for so long that um, asking for help was definitely huge,
Yeah,
huge, huge
it
part.
is. And I think and that's what I was saying in past episodes. Like, when did that become a bad thing? When
Right?
did we feel like, I don't know, like sometimes I wonder that these like positive like heroes that we looked up to, sometimes I think they're really great, but I think sometimes, especially then when there's more of a conversation now, is like you look at Wonder Woman and like or whatever for an example, and it's just like all women expect to be her, but it's like, okay, not everyone has like, yes, we have superpowers, but like, it's just like I think,
Not in that
yeah,
way.
and I think we just have this like, I think that bred in a young age that we just, we aspired to be these women so much, is that when we didn't physically, and we are in our own ways, but when we physically didn't grow a cape and fly around the fucking world, we're like, oh, okay, I'm not good enough. I can't ask for help. I need to work harder to be better, to be that Pinterest mom, to be whatever. And I'm not shaming Pinterest moms. It's fucking awesome. If you can find all that, I probably will be if I am one day too. But the point is that you don't have to be, and that doesn't make you any of a less of a mom. Like everyone, love your fucking kids. You are just a shit parent, a shit bird. This is our new saying. You're a shit bird if you just don't love your kids. That
Yeah.
And I think we can all test that as adults. If you look back, you know what? I'm sure my parents made mistakes, tons. I'm just kidding, not tons, Lee. Mom, sorry, but you know what I mean. Like there were mistakes, but at the end of the day, when I think back, I'm like, they were just learning. And once they did like when they could do better, they did do better. And instead of holding that against them, I think it's just important to know that like we're all evolving and growing. It's not anyone's
Totally.
fault. Like our parents weren't given the tools, so how are they supposed to know? They're learning how to get the tools the same way. And just as you were learning to get the tools because your parents probably don't suffer from that. So you were getting the tools from that as you were learning yourself. Like you're
Right.
trying to learn about it and you're trying to use them at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely like a juggling
Yeah.
act.
Yeah. And two, I think for you, and I can attest this because I've watched your, career from going into like, trying to find your space and like the office setting and administration and like, maybe it's the company. Okay, I'll try this one. I'll give it another shot. Or like, maybe it's corporate. And then the day you just decided like, fuck it, I'm leaning in and I am doing what I love more and more. I think that was too a huge, like you could just see the weight lifted on you, just like, you just knew that you were going to be stepping in, even though it was uncomfortable and it was scary, you were stepping into the next phase of your life. And I think that was a big level glow up for you. It was
Thanks.
nice to see. And now look
Yay.
at your
Yeah,
salon.
thanks. Yeah, I'm having way too much fun. Like it doesn't feel like work. And that is what I love about when I like actually let go of what I thought I was supposed to be doing. And I'm like air quoting over
I know.
here. But because I chased the
Yes.
money, right? But I was never doing anything that I wanted to do. And as soon as I stepped into being like, hey, what if I did this? Might as well try it. If I could always have a backup plan if I need to or
Yeah.
whatever. And it just fit. It fit everything. I didn't even advertise that much. I just like got busy one
Yeah.
morning and I was like, oh, I have a full schedule. When did this even
Right.
happen?
Yeah. And everything that you thought you
And
probably couldn't get and what was holding you back this whole time. Like,
yeah,
oh, I'm not going to go full time. I won't get a free schedule. But the minute you're like, fuck it, I'm not chasing it for that. I just want to be happy. And then it was like, here's all your clients. And you're
right.
like, uh-huh, of course. Of course. It was that simple. Like,
I just overthought it
always.
and, talked myself out of it a million
Yeah.
times,
And
right? But
struggles
yeah,
when you have like issues. And I think anybody that's struggles, like you can be confident, but still like feel insecure. And I think when you have
totally.
your mental illnesses, they tell you you're fucking dumb and wrong and you can't. And they're the doubts and the fears that fester and have a voice. Like some people's fears don't have a loud voice. Some of ours are fucking loud AF. And when you have mental illnesses, those patterns are a lot stronger and they're harder to fight.
Totally.
And yeah, I just love all of it. I don't love to learn, obviously, that people go through struggles, but I love it's just everyone that I talked to lately about this, it just has such a good comeback story of being like, I'm not going to let it cripple me anymore. It did at one time, but I'm not. And you could just tell that you guys are at the next level because speaking it out loud publicly is just acknowledging it further and that it's okay. And it's almost like it, I don't know, for me, it was just like a breath of fresh air. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's off. I've laid it all out there. So
Right. Absolutely.
it's there. Do what you want with it. Just
Yeah.
kidding. Was
Right.
there anything that we missed that you would want to share about your journey with depression or new moms that are out there? Any words of wisdom from Miss Hollie G before we end our beautiful I sounds I don't want to say beautiful because we talk about hard topics, but I hope we're talking about them in a way that everyone feels more safe and related and not so like dark and heavy. We're not discrediting that there's no dark and heavy, but we want to just bring the light to some of these dark things so that if you are dark, you can feel the light. So let's hear what Hollie G has to say.
So one part that I want to put in there, even though me and my ex at the time, we weren't super great, we have a super awesome relationship right now. Me and his wife actually talk all the time, and we are like a really cool blended family. They have another little one, and we are like a big happy blended family, which sounds bizarre when I put it out loud, knowing our history, but it's really freaking cool to be able to come together for birthdays, and celebrations and Easter and stuff like that, to be able to just celebrate our little one, and be able to do that together and make really cool parenting calls together after our history of, maybe not so supportive of
Oh,
me.
for sure.
Um, and I think another thing too, my brain actually blocked out the first year of Zadie's
Mm-hmm.
life. So I can't go back there. I can't physically remember anything. My mind was on such a fight or flight situation that the trauma of it just was mentally blocked out. I get curious of wanting to go back there, but I won't. Obviously, my brain did it
Yeah.
for a reason. Um, but just know, like, for any more mom or any new moms, just know you're not alone. That was the biggest thing. Knowing that these feelings are normal. Nobody knows what they're actually
Yeah.
doing. Um, it doesn't, like, everybody's like, oh, it comes naturally. No, it doesn't. Your body just had a traumatic birth. Even though it might come naturally to your body, your brain still has to kind of make sense of it all too.
Absolutely.
So just know you're not alone. And the fact that your journey is yours, it's nobody else's. People are going to give unsolicited advice for literally everything you do. Block that shit out and find your own way through it. And yeah, ask the hard questions to your doctor. If something doesn't feel right, you know your body. If he says everything looks good, keep asking, get second opinions. You know your body, and yeah,
Yeah.
just do
I,
it. Just
I
do
love it. And
the
don't
thing.
be and I think that's what your point was is like, don't sit there like not that you had any idea because you're essentially on your own new baby, so far away. It's Grand Prairie. It's hard. It was a weird time in the like ever. And and I
Yeah.
think that's new moms are just thinking you're a bad mom. You're not a fucking bad mom. You're still a goddamn human being. You're still going to have feelings. And you know how many moms tell me, I didn't like my baby for the first year. I didn't like my baby until they were born. I didn't feel love until the first couple years till I had a personality. And every single one's like, wow, I feel like shit for saying that. And you're like, do you guys realize that you all just say the same thing? So obviously, and you're all amazing parents. Like, yeah, obviously, if you're going to go out and party and leave your child with a crackhead, that's not great. Please don't do that. But, like, it happens
Yeah.
so much more than we imagine. And although I can't share my experiences, obviously, on this, because cat moms, like, we live different lives. You guys don't understand litter problems. Okay. So just kidding. But just saying, I think I want to develop a platform for people to share their experiences and everything, because most of the time someone else is experiencing and they feel super alone. And I'm only one human. I can only have so many experiences to talk about. So it just really, really warms my heart. And I love so much that we've just started this podcast in 3 weeks and we have amazing people like you coming on, because if you can at least help one person or one mom go, holy shit, that's what happens, and I can talk to the doctor and they're not going to take my baby away, and I can have some relief from this. Like, that's fucking incredible. That's all I'm gonna say
Yeah.
about that.
And also, there's a lot of moms out there who
Yes.
drop their babies. So don't feel bad about dropping your
Yes.
baby on their head
And
and then be okay
lots.
because it's like Fight Club. We need to talk about it a
Yes,
little bit more though.
exactly. Absolutely. And have the decency to know that maybe just because you haven't dropped your baby doesn't mean you haven't done something equally, like, let's say, for lack of a better word, absent-minded, because your brain is so caught up in trying to just fucking learn how to find its patterns without it going through all these, like, depression and anxiety and all that and da 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 da. Like, I've done some things where I've been so absent-minded. I'm like, what the fuck? Where was your brain? And I'm like, well, don't become a mom because you're going to kill your baby, So it's like, it's very real that your brain can just take over. And people can say this. Have you not driven from A to B and got to B and was like, huh? How'd I get here?
Right?
Yeah, it's a dissociate,
Autopilot.
right? So, like, for me, it's easy to do that, especially with my PTSD from driving. It's like, I'm better now, obviously, but my brain would just kind of go on autopilot, and I was there and I was present. I was driving great, but like my brain was super distracted with a YouTube video or something, so that I didn't sit there and panic the whole time. I'm like, did I just really drive 30 minutes to
Yeah,
work?
absolutely.
Like, I don't want people to think I'm not paying attention, but
Yeah,
just keeping that overactive part of your brain busy so that you just do your damn thing. And sometimes it
totally.
gets in the way. You can't do your damn thing. And sometimes that's a car in your hand, a baby, I don't know, food. Never. No, you never drop food. But
Oh, well, if your toddler knocks
yes,
it out of your hand
that's a
though.
whole other attack. And I think that's on purpose. And I don't like children because of that. I'm just kidding. Specifically why I won't have kids. Grant eats my snacks. I don't need a little mini me and him eating them too. Okay, you guys? Like, Benji already bitches at me all day about food intake. I can't.
That's fair.
And what else did I want to say about your journey? And I totally agree with pushing with the doctors. I wanted to say this too. Not from my knowledge, not scientifically, but you hear from a lot of people that they're trying things and it's not working. Generally, if it's not working, your body is still sending those signals. They're still reacting the way it is. Like you said, ask, because a lot of things could look the same, and science changes every fucking day, right? They learn stuff.
And like, right? And like, even if that's not like a family doctor, maybe you want to look at other
Mm-hmm.
options like naturopath or a holistic approach. Absolutely ask those questions because it could just be something as easy as, oh, you're not getting
Yeah.
enough
Oh my
iron in
gosh.
your system. Or,
Supplementation.
you know what I mean? And that makes a huge difference. Or get some nutrients in your body because for me, I wasn't eating days on end. So yeah, no shit,
Yes.
I
And
was
you now, and
exhausted.
now look at you.
I
Now,
had
and,
nothing
and
to
I
do
know
with
Sean
my
has
body.
a big part to do with that, because I know I'm pretty sure he loves cooking. If I'm correct, does he? Yes. And two, I love
Yes,
seeing it. And because
yes,
also
yeah,
the way you're trying to live a lot of your life, like clean and local and all that, how much better do you feel incorporating all those good foods into your life now? I'm sure that made a huge difference on your mental health too.
Oh, absolutely. Knowing that what I'm putting in my body is actually going to fuel me. Don't get me wrong, I'll still sit down and have no willpower when it comes to Oreos. I'll still
Girl,
eat like two
you need
rows.
the
I can't just have
balance.
two.
You need the
But
balance, but
like,
you need the calories. You can eat
right.
all the good food and still have the bad, because the more good food you eat, it's less calories and you're actually using it for proper fuel. The bad foods, the least you eat and the more bad foods you eat, the more it's going to store. So you can eat all the good foods because it's going to be used as fuel, but the bad foods sit there and they rot. So you just have to have, like we always say, like, 70-30. Some days I'm 50-50. Sometimes I'm 100% bad food and I eat fast food or takeout for the whole entire day. For sure. But optimally, I'm not operating. I'm not operating optimally.
Right.
Either.
Oh, I heard this theory the other day too that I really like. If you are craving chocolate, it usually means that your energy is out of balance. So if you're ever like overwhelmed, you know how people stress
Yes.
eat chocolate? Like I stress eat chocolate when I'm PMSing. I crave it. It's because your energy in your system is out of balance, and chocolate's
Yeah,
very
that's
grounding.
so fair. And I fit, especially when you're PMSing and then you're bleeding, you're low iron, low blood, everything is low, and you're just
Yep.
like, take me up and make me high, sugar. So I say to my
Right?
joint every
Straight
single
up.
time I
I
go to
like that.
light it. Just kidding. It was so good catching up with you today, Hall. I know we're so busy, that I hate to say we should do this more, but the fact that we always like have that connection, and that is the beauty of social media, is being a part of you and the girls in Sean's life, all the way down in BC here. But I'm just so, there's some people that really, I know you had your hard times of 2020, but I think out of a lot of people, you came out on top of that fucking year because you did a lot of what you wanted for you and you took control. Even if they made the restrictions harder on you, you still bounced back. And mentally, whether you did or not, you definitely shown that. And so I just really want to commend you for how, because yeah, like I said, a lot of people went down and you went up, you got educated on things, you grew. And yeah, I just want to say I really respected that. And I'm really proud to watch you grow more this year with your salon being open, hopefully
Aw,
full time.
yay! Thank you so much. It's been quite a ride. And oh gosh, I appreciate the hell out of you. Thank you so much for just
Thank you.
being
You
you and
always,
loving
and
me
years of
as
it, and
me.
it's so exciting to watch us grow. And I'm excited. Hollie's going to be joining us again for our next episode. So I guess we'll sign off on this show while I have you here. So you guys, that was a wrap up of our
Yeah.
depression guest episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the amazing three ladies that jumped on and shared their most deepest, darkest journeys and their lightest part of their journeys on depression. And the next month, guys, we're flipping over to April. So it's time to talk about women's health. I'm sorry, boys, but it's 91% women in our little community here. So we're going to jump in to things like birth control, pregnancy, miscarriage, abortion, labor, all the things. So we can start talking about even more topics. So we learn about each other. So once again, thank you again so much, Hollie, for coming. And I'm so excited to have you back. And you guys, thanks for showing up again. And we'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you guys so much for stopping by today. We appreciate you so, so much. If you like this episode and you want to hear more or be updated with episode drops, please make sure to send us some love on our Instagram page, the Be Real Babe Podcast. Give us a follow and stay tuned for more realness coming to you next week. Until next time, babes.